everyone. Good evening and good morning in some cases. We are very happy to start our mini workshop series here at Startup Grind Newcastle. And we are very excited to have Becca and James that we will introduce very shortly. But before we start, we wanted to introduce the Newcastle team. Obviously myself, I'm Tamer Shadid, the director, and now I will introduce Patricia. She is our new co-director and has been a very good support in putting this event and many more that you will see. Please, Patricia.
Doesn't come up automatically. Hello, everyone. Hello. So like Tamer says, thank you, Tamer, for the introduction. My name is Patricia. I joined the Newcastle team as a co-director with Tamer, so we'll be leading the chapter together to deliver some exciting events for you, both online and offline. I have recently moved from London, so I'm now in the northeast of England. A great startup grind is a great way to build a network and to also help the local ecosystem, because I've been working in the industry for over 30 years and on a day-to-day basis helping startups, scale-ups and working with the founders. So great to meet everyone tonight, and over to you, Tamer. I won't be boring anyone more. We've got amazing workshop to attend.
Sure, thank you very much for that. Now we're gonna listen to James Kraft from Tedco, and I really want to thank him for his time, especially for today. Very, very busy day, and he still agreed to give us some time. There we go.
No problem. Thanks very much for the invite, Tamer and Patricia. Really good to be here. Nice to see you guys again. So I'll just quickly introduce myself, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction to Tedco as well. I think the first thing to say is thank you very much for the invite. It's great to be part of this. Tedco historically for a number of years have been involved in startup. It's something that we've done independently for the last 8 years. So it's great to be here. Hopefully we've got people on who are just starting their journey of getting a business started and established. For any people that are on who are from the northeast or based in the northeast region, Tedco would be a place where you could approach us and look to get some help and support from us. So with a bit of luck, I'll tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Just see if it'll let me share my screen, Tamer. Okie dokie, where we go here? Does that come through all right? Yeah. Okay, great. So like I was just saying there, so I'm James from Tedco. Essentially, we help people start up businesses. It's part of our day-to-day. So somebody asked me today at an event of what it is that we do. And I replied by saying that we help people turn business ideas into reality, and hopefully in a bit of a strapline. That's kind of what we're here to do for the people of the region. I didn't want to talk too much today. I just thought it'd be good to share a couple of case studies of people that I've worked with over the last couple of years. So this guy is Nick Smith. He was approached he approached us in 2015 in terms of looking to launch a business. At the time, he was a school teacher teaching chemistry. He was a little bit, let's say, fed up with what he was doing at the time. And Nick was really interested in chemistry as a whole. And he had a passion for beer, which I shared with him, to be quite honest with you. But at the time when Nick approached Tedco, he was struggling to raise finance to get his business off the ground. And that's where we were able to really come in and to add some value to what he was trying to do. So Nick applied for a Virgin Startup loan with Tedco. So we helped him to do his research, to formulate his business plan, to try and find premises, to find his kit, to have a look at who his audience was going to be. He had the skill and the passion for the brews, which was absolutely fantastic. But what he didn't have was some of that kind of business acumen and the ability to know where to start. And that's where we come in. So I think when we look at Steam Machine as a brewery, they've come on leaps and bounds. They started off in that premises, which is in the top right, hopefully, of your screen. That was a very small premises. They then moved to the one in your bottom left, which was double the size of their original one. And they now have a huge space in Newton Aycliffe. The middle picture is when I went to visit them recently, once they'd fully repaired their startup loan. And if anybody's wondering about the top picture of Richard Branson, he was actually, he won a competition to share a beer with Richard on a train journey from Newcastle down to York. So they now employ 5 staff. But the reason I use this case study is I think, you know, somebody who's in a day-to-day job, you know, maybe doing something that you don't enjoy anymore. I think going into self-employment and launching up, you know, a business from scratch, it's something that can be done. Not everybody will do it, but, you know, I think it's a good example of what can be achieved. Another similar example, another one that I've worked with recently, Ashgarth Engineering, Paul and Neil, they started probably about 4 years ago this summer. They needed 40,000 when they started off, and they also needed help with a lot of the basics, such as finding their premises, thinking about their legalities, their structure, even down to their employing staff and taking people on. And this business, you know, I'm really proud to say they now turn over 850k. They employ 9 FTE, but we've actually helped these guys to do a number of different funding applications. So with the support of somebody like Tedco, we can work with them to do applications. It's not just about the startup finance. We've worked with this business for 4 years. They've actually received well over £150,000 worth of grant funding in terms of machines, infrastructure, improvements to premises. The bottom left picture is the new space that they've moved into. It's a much, much bigger unit. And to think of where they started in a small unit 4 years ago to be employing 9 people now and in a really big space, I think they're just another really good example of how we can help people. So I'll just finish off by saying these are some of the programs that we currently deliver across the Northeast region. Today we've been doing one of the DABS events, which was a festival of enterprise in Durham. And the 2 case studies that I've used there are people that we've supported under our Virgin Startup program. And I guess really to make sure I don't overrun my time, Tama, if anybody's in the region, if you're looking for some help and support in terms of formulating your ideas, testing them ideas, you know, having a look at how your business model will operate, then get in touch. I'm afraid to say for people who are on here internationally, we can't really support international people at this stage. But if you are from the region, then feel free to get in touch.
Thank you very much for that. And now we can start introducing Becca.
Great. So this session is about how founders can use their strengths to empower the team and lead on the rest. Should probably have asked whether you guys are working with teams. Even if you're not, it's really useful information to have about yourself and to think about in terms of when you start, if you haven't got any employees, when you start to bring people on, to avoid the mistakes that we made when I founded my tech startup, about everyone doing everything. So it's really great to just have this as a mindset, even if you're not currently working with anybody. So for this session, what we're going to do, I'm going to chat to you a bit about my experience, my business and my ethos around the workplace, talk to you about strengths-based leadership. We're going to do an activity in pairs about how to identify your strengths. And then hopefully there will be enough time at the end for some questions. So in terms of my experience and ethos, I am an organisational psychologist. And whenever I say that to people, they always are like, wow, that's so interesting. What is that? So basically an organisational psychology and an organisational psychologist does many things. But basically it's using an understanding of business and an understanding of human behaviour behaviour and psychology to make businesses and people more productive at work. I'm also a trained and accredited business coach, and so a lot of the things that I do, I use coaching in that. And so the activity I'm going to share with you today is actually a coaching activity. But I think like my approach to coaching is kind of like coaching can be used just like if you're chatting with your neighbour, if you're having an argument with your partner, or if you're at work. It's really that approach, the questioning approach, the trying to understand the other person approach is really helpful. And when I say coaching, I don't always mean like the type of coaching I do. I co-founded a app called We Love Work, and that started off its life as a values-based recruitment app. And then after all many years of like trying to raise investment, all the issues of trying to prove your concept that I recognised you were talking about there, Jim, we pivoted that because of what people were mainly interested in. The aspects of the business that the people seemed to be interested in was the culture survey. So now it is a culture survey, a wellbeing survey, and a diversity and inclusion survey. And they all integrate with each other, and it's integrated with Workplace by Facebook. And so that was a real like turning point for us, was when we started working with Workplace, because then they give us customers basically, and that's, I think, well, for us was a big battle, but a lot of that was because we weren't playing to our strengths. So when we founded We Love Work, me and my co-founder, apart from the technology, we were just doing everything and anything. Like some days she'd be doing sales, other days I'd be doing sales. Some days, like she got me to do social media, and I was like, oh, I don't know anything about social media. And then it just like, and then she'd be doing balance sheets and I'd be doing, it was just like madness. And then once we pivoted, we completely changed the way we did things, and it's just been much easier. And just in terms of things coming to us, it's not that thing of like, oh, we're trying so hard, why is nothing happening? It just flows much better. Before I founded We Love Work, was very miserable in the workplace for many years. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this kind of stuff. I know that if somebody had taken an interest in me as a person in any of the jobs I had before I went back to university and studied organizational psychology, that I could have been a lot happier. It was like 5 years of different jobs, mainly in sales, and I didn't enjoy any of them. And I know the impact that had on me as a person, on my family. I don't think so. It might sound a bit dramatic, but I think that when you are not happy at work, and since you are all self-employed, you may have also found this, and that might have been the reason why you decided to go self-employed. But I feel like when you're my experience was anyway, that when you're unhappy at work, you're not as happy at home. When you're driving, you're like a bit more like got road rage, and you're not necessarily as good a sister or parent or whatever your roles are that you have in your life. If you're not happy, it's just natural that you're not going to be as engaged with anything. And so I really think that if we all made a concerted effort to understand people and make workplaces better places for people to be, that literally the world would be a better place. And so I've got my ethos there. I'll just skip to that. So I really believe that everyone can be happy and brilliant at work. It's just about finding or creating the right conditions for individuals to thrive, and strengths plays a massive part in that. And so I've also got imposter syndrome down there. So imposter syndrome, I again describe myself as an ex-sufferer of imposter syndrome. So I don't think it raises its ugly head every now and then, but in general, I don't think I have imposter syndrome. And the way I got kind of cured from that was through coaching. But it is something that I know a lot of founders suffer from. It's kind of that thing of like, should I be running a business? Is anyone going to take me seriously? I'm doing this presentation on this thing, and like, who am I to be doing this? And you don't have that kind of an organization behind you to kind of be like, yes, well, I work for this company, so that means that I am kind of accepted. And you also don't have those parameters to stop you working like a maniac. So if you feel like you're not good enough at something, you can literally spend your whole weekend or every evening or a week learning about it to make yourself feel more comfortable. So I think identifying your strengths can really help with overcoming imposter syndrome. So I'm going to talk to you about strengths, preferences, and weaknesses. So I really like this quote by Joseph Baton, whoever he is. But our strengths are our tools, our personal reality, and our weaknesses are only what we are not. So we tend, I think, especially if you have imposter syndrome, to focus a lot on what you're not good at or what you need to get better at. So I'm really bad at French, but that literally has no impact on my life. I'm not very good at systems and processes and like CRM systems and all that kind of stuff that as a self-employed person, I'm sure you all recognize are important. And for me, that was ruining my enjoyment of my business. I now have a virtual assistant who I just pass most systems and process stuff to, and she does that for me. I'm not a naturally organized person, so having awareness of that is really important for me. I make sure I've put everything in my diary. I set myself alarms. I email myself about stuff. I have notes for everything. But what I am good at is I'm good with people. And so I run a people-based business and to help me play to my strengths. So this was going to be a question that I was going to get everyone to interact with, but now I've seen how difficult it is to get people to come in and out on the actually I think you can do it in the chat.
No, yeah, no, yeah. I'm just everybody can now unmute themselves and just engage, because I think now it's better.
Okay, cool. So what I can't really see anyone anyway, but just somebody speak about what kind of issues do you think that you might have within a business strengths-based leadership could help overcome? So by strengths-based leadership, I basically just mean using the strengths of yourself and your employees.
Jim, you're off mute.
Well, I mean, I guess for me, it's the sort of obvious thing, really, which is particularly as I've sort of stepped out of corporate life and I've founded my own startup, you realise that you've got to kind of do, a lot more. The breadth of what you have to cover is huge, but you've only got so much time, and you've got to manage those roles carefully, Becca, as you said. So I think for me, it's helping me drive the company forward using my right strengths in the right way, and leveraging other people's strengths to help me do the other important things that, either I'd have to go and learn about, like, I don't know, accountancy, which would just be a waste of my time, or and wouldn't help me move forward to where I need to get to quickly. So for me, there's a kind of, a list of things that, I could consider and getting other people to do, and just think about how I could make those things happen, whether it's people or, tools that might help me do them, I guess. Am I answering your question?
Do you have employees? Yeah, you are completely. Yeah. So do you have employees at the moment, Jim?
Well, no, but again, I'm on the track now to bring people in. Looking at internships. I've been talking about Kickstart, but I'm actually looking to find, what I'd call A players to come in specific roles. I'm raising money at the moment. That's for people. So I guess to some extent, I'm realizing where some of my knowledge gaps may be. And I'm obviously in the path to now trying to address some of those, some through people. But I'm always keen to learn about better ways of doing things as well.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's definitely one of the key things, is if you've got that awareness from the start. Because I think what sometimes startups, businesses in general, just define a role. And they're like, okay, so we need someone for this role, rather than thinking about, okay, so what are my strengths and what are my gaps? And then making the role kind of around your gaps, which is a much more kind of a helpful way of doing it.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any suggestions on the kinds of things they think it might help with? Okie doke. So these are the things, these are some of the things. So being a headless chicken. So I'm sure there's a more professional term for that, but that is the best term that I can think of when I think back to my early days of We Love Work. So like I said at the start, like me and my co-founder Paris, so I am an organizational psychologist, and she owned a recruitment company before doing We Love Work. And she's great at like selling, she's really like commercial, and mine's more of like the sciencey psychology stuff. But we didn't like sit down and work that out before, like, okay, so what are you good at, what are you not good at? No, we just were like, right, okay, so what do we need to do? And then basically like we didn't even split it down the middle, we just both did everything, and we're both insanely busy and just ridiculous. And things were overlapping and no one knew where any documents were. So it was just like madness. Whereas if we'd taken the time to look at what we were both good at, I would not have been doing selling. And she would not necessarily have been doing like talks on psychology that were taking ages to research and put together. So the headless chicken and the wasting time, if you know your strengths, then that's just not really a problem anymore. Talent retention and talent attraction are two really key things. So if people get... So I'm going to talk to you a bit more about this on the next section. But in terms of when you work, you have a need within you to be able to use your traits and your talents that are like your top strengths. If you're not getting to do that, you'll start to feel a bit bad about yourself, and then that'll reduce your engagement, and then you won't enjoy the job, and then you won't be as good at the job, so you'll be more likely to leave. It can also help with talent attraction as well, because you will naturally, if you are like doing strengths-based leadership and helping to your people to grow, your business will become well known and people will want to work for you. But also from the perspective of people, there's like a lot of research that shows that people want to grow, as in they want to learn new skills in a role. But there's also research that suggests that if people aren't growing as people, they will not be satisfied. And so by helping people to understand their strengths and develop those strengths, it can help you to attract and keep great people. It can also reduce conflict. And so a lot of the time where you'll have conflict in a business is people being defensive. And without going too deep into it, a lot of that comes from kind of lack of confidence and feeling like you have to defend your position because maybe you're doing things that you're not very good at, and then that makes you feel uncomfortable. And so then you have to go above and beyond. And so by having this kind of strengths approach where everyone's just really open about, I'm good at this and I'm not good at this, then it really reduces conflict within businesses. And then just in terms of some research about taking a strengths-based approach, so emphasising employee strengths and performance reviews increased performance by 36.4%. And Gallup did a study where they found out that there was a 12.5% increase in productivity of teams whose managers received a strengths intervention, and a 14.9% lower turnover rates. So even just somebody else, so a manager knowing their strengths, actually helps the whole team. Don't know all the ins and outs of the study, but I would imagine that manager will then start focusing more on other people's strengths, as well as being able to use their own strengths. So there are a couple... So there are a few ways to identify strengths in like an intentional manner. So one way is to use psychometrics or personal assessments. And another way is to do structured discussions, or also known as coaching. And there's pros and cons of both. I love both. I love psychometrics and assessments because you can find out, there's some information that I know that and conversations that I've had with people after they've completed an assessment, that where they've realized stuff about themselves and they've told me stuff about themselves that I don't know about people I've known for 20 years. So it can bring out really interesting discussions and bring up really important things for people that a lot of the time they didn't realize about themselves. It's very quick. and you don't need a skilled person. Well, you do need a skilled person to be administering it, but it's not like coaching where it can take a long time. But anybody, well, not anybody, but I'm just keep saying things and then saying, no, not this, not that. Well, kind of anybody can have a coaching conversation. If you have the skills, if you're a good listener, if you're a good communicator, you can have a structured discussion that I'm going to share with you now. Whereas psychometrics and assessments should be administered by a trained professional. They should be then fed back by a trained professional. So for you as a startup, you could use psychometrics, but it will cost you hundreds of pounds. You could have this structured discussion yourself and it'll cost you nothing. And as when I was in a startup, I would definitely have been going for the second option. Upon reflection, the first option might have been very helpful, but it's just about where you are as a business as to what approach you think is most useful. So, and it's the assessment that I use in my business. So this, I've realised I haven't told you nothing about Brighty People, but the logo's on every single slide. So Brighty People is my other business that I have alongside We Love Work. So a lot of anyone who's doing a tech startup will know it takes a long time before you can start getting paid by your tech startup. So I also have a business called Brighty People, which is a coaching and culture consultancy. And so the assessment that I use in there for things for strengths and for coaching is called Harrison assessments. And I really think that the theory of that is really helpful for people to understand. And it's a really simple theory. So the theory behind that is called performance enjoyment theory. I think somebody's got their mic not on mute because I'm getting feedback. Thank you. So the theory behind the Harrison assessment is just this theory called performance enjoyment theory. And that's the idea that things you like, you'll be good at. So then you feel good about doing it. So you do it more. So then you get even better. And so then you want to do it more. So things that you are good at, you will get better at. Things that you don't like, well, it'll also be the case. If you don't like something, you won't do it very often. When you do it, you'll feel rubbish about yourself or you'll get bad feedback from other people. So you'll avoid it even more. So things you naturally don't like, you probably won't be very good at. And that's fine. It's not a theory where it's saying, oh, you can't do something. It's just going to take you more effort. So an example for me, and this is one of the reasons I love this assessment so much because it changed my life completely, was I used to work for Santander, the bank, and I was a personal banker, like one of those people who opened bank accounts and credit cards and stuff for you. And I used to always get told off for not ticking boxes and not initialing boxes and stuff. And it was ridiculous. I was just like, how have I got a first class honours degree in psychology and I cannot tick this box? And I would be on a personal development plan. I used to have regular meetings with my manager about why I didn't tick these boxes. And I was just so ridiculous. And then there was other things like when I was at uni, like I made a mistake on my dissertation assessment questionnaire, and that caused a massive problem for me. Did the same thing with my thesis and my master's. And then when I was at uni doing my master's, some people came in and ran Harrison assessments for us, and attention to detail came out as my lowest preference. And so it was like a sixth sense moment. I was like, oh my goodness, that is why I was on that personal development plan. That's why I messed up this dissertation. That's why there's tiny things where when I'm not where I don't pay attention and then I make massive mistakes and end up booking flights for the wrong day or the wrong year or whatever, because I'm not paying attention, because that is not my strength. And so it was really nice because I was like, okay, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. It's just not something I'm good at because I haven't practiced it. And also in terms of running my business, and for you guys from a business perspective, I'd say understanding the things you're not good at is really helpful because of some of the stuff Tim and Jim touched upon about recruiting people. Knowing what you're not good at is really important because you can then get other people to do it for most things. So for me, like I said before, with my virtual assistant, she does systems and process stuff. A lot of that involves attention to detail. I don't even do anything to do with my accounts. I just put all my like receipts in an envelope, post them to my accountant, forward all my emails and like invoices. And then I just pay whatever she tells me to, because I'm not good at that. And there's no reason for me to be doing that. But if I hadn't have done that assessment, I don't know if I would ever have realised that it was attention to detail that was the problem. So and then it just says their key strengths. If you're not getting to use them at work, you'll probably be dissatisfied, but you might not know why. So I might have, like in the past, had jobs. I did once have a job that was data entry, but that was really boring. I don't think it was about attention to detail. But I could have a job where it would sound really interesting, and it could be to do with psychology. But if that involved a lot of attention to detail, I wouldn't enjoy my job. And if I hadn't have done that assessment, I might not know why. The same is the true for things that you dislike. If you're having to do them too often, you'll probably be dissatisfied and you might not know why. So that is the kind of assessment approach to identifying your strengths. And so this is now an activity that we're going to do about identifying your strengths. So it's going to go into breakout rooms. I think we've got an odd number of people. So Tamar, Patricia, if you can take part as well, that would be really helpful.
Sure.
So in pairs, so I'm referring to you guys as coaches and coachees. The coach is the person who's going to be asking the questions, and the coachee is the one who's going to be responding, but you are going to swap over. So you will both get the opportunity to kind of understand your strengths, but also do the activity so that then you can take it back to your business and do it with other people. So as a coach, the main skill you need is active listening. So a lot of the time when I'm teaching coaching skills to people, they are panicking about the questioning, and I was exactly the same. So I was a coach before I did my coaching qualification. And I used to be really focused on the questioning. It's the listening that is the most important. I don't know if anyone's had experience of being coached, but it's really freeing to just have a situation where someone's just listening to you and you can just talk like blah, 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 get all your thoughts out, have someone picking up on a few little things. But the main thing is that ability to listen and listen properly and not be distracted, not looking around and or looking at our phones or have notifications. The listening is the real key thing as a coach. And I'm sure, Angie, you would agree with me, I hope, that is the real strength of coaches. The coachee, the main skill you need to have is to be open and try to avoid being modest. We have, especially as British people, so Mara, you might not struggle with this as much, but as British people, we tend to talk a lot about, oh, I've got really lucky, and oh yeah, right place at the right time, or my team did this. But for this activity, it's about your strengths, it's about what you're good at. So try to avoid being modest and just say, okay, yes, this went well because I did this, because I did that, because I did the other, because that's the whole point of the activity. So what the activity is going to involve is the coach is going to ask the coachee to reflect on 3 to 5 significant career points that they've had since they started working. And the coach is going to make notes on what the person says. So you need to start off with your current business or your current role and then go back. And so you're going to write out those 3 to 5 career points. Then starting with your current role, you're going to talk about, and the coachee is going to talk about all the successes, their wins, their abilities, their skills, their responsibilities, learnings, any positive feedback that they've had, and anything else that you think might be helpful to reflect on. The coach needs to ask questions to prompt awareness. So you might go back through your career and you're just listing, oh, this happened and then this happened, but not necessarily be thinking, and it's just normal not to think like this because we never think like this, of what did I do, or why did that event go so well, or why did I win that deal, or why did I get that promotion? So if that is the case, the coach, the person being in the coaching role, just needs to ask questions to prompt awareness. So for example, what qualities do you hold that you think that made that happen. So hopefully, Tamara, there's a way that we can, I would advise everyone to screenshot this so you can still see it, because it's quite a complex exercise. If I was doing this when I do this in a coaching session, it takes 90 minutes. So if it feels a bit rushed, it's fine. It's just to kind of have a go. When all career points have been explored, ask the coachee to reflect on all their career points and the role that they played in that. And also ask them to think about themselves at the start of their career and acknowledge how much they've done and learned since. So I think what we can sometimes do is, so we're running these businesses and we're just going through the day-to-day and like doing all these different things and not really stop to think like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. Like if you told 15-year-old me that I was going to have a HR tech startup and I was going to have my own business psychology consultancy, I think, wow, that's great. But I don't necessarily know how often I stop and actually think about that. It's more about like, what do I need to do next? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Or what else do I need to learn? So I think it's really helpful just to think about what you like, where you are. And then if you do have time, ask the coachee, what do you think are the main skills and strengths that you've identified through the activity? And the coachee to write them, the coachee to write those down. If you don't get time to get to that point, hopefully you will. As soon as we finish the workshop, if you could write those down, because that's going to be the main point of the activity, is for you to have that information for yourself to understand what have I done all through the past however many years. Excuse me. What have I done through past however many years, and what was my role in that? Okay, so hopefully you had some good conversations.
We did.
In your pairs. And did anybody identify some strengths that they didn't necessarily know about or that weren't at the front of mind? Yeah?
Yeah. Patricia, were you the coachee or the coach?
I was the coach. I worked with Jim. Sorry, James. The second time I'm saying James. Yeah.
Yeah, that's even more.
I was trying to help him to find some qualities or characteristics, but yeah.
Yeah, it was. I have to say, I found it a useful conversation actually, and in the sense that it kind of reminds you a little bit of who you are, where you've come from, what you've achieved, or whatever that particular moment was. And then it reminds me about it was an example of success in my career we talked about, and how I achieved. Well, I didn't achieve it on my own, but how I helped make that happen. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, that was really useful. Patricia was a very good coach, I have to say. But getting out some of those things, because now I'm thinking, I haven't really talked about that for ages. I haven't talked in that way, and I'm sat here facing into lots of different challenges at the moment. And it just reminds me about actually the strengths that I need to bring to bear. It reminds me of it's kind of got me thinking about what to do about some of the areas where I've got blind spots or functional things that I just know I'm not brilliant at. So it has been useful. It was a useful reflection actually. So yeah, well done, Patricia.
Well, thank you. No, thank you for sharing that with me. To hear, to listen to, and glad if it was helpful.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, Jim. Anyone else got anything they want to share in terms of what their conversations?
Thanks, Angie. Really.
Oh,
she's an amazing coach. Really. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Very welcome. And it was lovely. We were very, very, we could draw parallels, couldn't we, eventually? Because we switched a bit. We sort of we were interlinked, weren't we? So we would keep switching in between the two, coach and coachee. And we've got so many parallels, us as you know, starting out in our careers and as single parents and everything. It was just lovely, wasn't it? And bringing them strengths to the fore. So, you know, it was lovely to share, and thank you for sharing, Mara.
Fab. That's another thing I love about coaching conversations. Like, you get to know people so quickly when you're having like a structured conversation about a subject, because when else are you going to like be talking to someone necessarily like so intently to find out, okay, so tell me about your career, like what did you do, what do you think you were good at, why do you think like that's you're good at that? Why? It's just a really, like, for me, like, and people are like my main passion and interest. I just love how quickly these types of conversations allow you to get to know like how people tick. And so yeah, so that's really great. I'm glad you've all been able to have some good conversations. So did anybody, I'm gonna like wrap this up soon, but did anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask?
One thing from me, I would love to hear your definition on act. I know it's all over. You can Google it, but what do you think it makes it very powerful, and what's the techniques that you think is useful for you?
Yeah, so for me, active listening. So like there's active listening that you learn about in training, where you're like, okay, so I've got to make eye contact and then I've got to nod at the right times. And I have to say, and then I have to repeat back things I've said. That's like a really great start. For me, active listening is about being like genuinely really curious and interested in the person. And I think it's just like natural, like people are a bit uncomfortable with silences, and I think a lot of the time when we're listening, we're thinking like you're half listening, but you're also half thinking like, what am I going to say next, or how does this align with me, so I can share like that, oh yeah, I understand. But for me, the main thing that I've learned from being a coach and from my coach training, etc., is that the best thing you can do when you're listening is literally you're only listening to that person. You're focusing on that person and you've cleared your mind. So like one of the things I recommend to people to do is it sounds like a strange thing to do, like to be a better coach, you should meditate every day, because that like there's very rarely a time when our minds are empty. It is difficult to listen to people, like listen properly without your mind wandering of like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? Or like, oh yeah, like, oh, they're talking about holiday. I can't wait to go on holiday. I'm sick of not being on holiday. And so I think that would be, for me, like the main thing that's the most important is to actually listen. And to give people the time. And then in terms of something that like is the biggest, like, no, that's an easy thing not to do, is to like check your phone. Or be like, oh, hang on a sec. I'm just like, you see something flash up on your phone, and it's really easy to do. And like, but it just makes the other person just think that you're not listening, even if you're just like, oh, what is that? It shows you your focus is not just on them. So they would be my main tips around active listening.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, that's very useful for sure. For me, I always try to stop any kind of judgment or advice because I think we're okay, why didn't you have try this or try that? And I keep reminding myself is that it's the constantly like journey, it's not mine, and they're probably tried everything I can think of but they don't want to go into it. They just want somebody to actually listen and let them uncouple the problem by themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things I think is really great about coaching. I might be repeating myself now and like becoming a bit preachy about it, but it's just having that opportunity to have somebody listen to you. And like so like the whole ethos, like so I'm a member of the International Coaching Federation, and their like main belief is everyone has their own answers within themselves. And so I can sit here and I can like tell you, Tama, oh, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. But there might be like 100 reasons why you know that won't work. But then you will probably have the one thing that you know will work because it's your life, it's your skills, it's your values, it's your everything. And I can tell you what I've done, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be any use to you. So I think that's a really great approach.
That's really good as well. And I would just, the title of the actual event is trying to also find the strengths in other people and find that part as well. So how would you provoke somebody to like start focusing on their strengths and giving them tips to go into that journey as well? Because some people wouldn't mind just going day to day and doing what they're being asked, and that's about it. Just pushing them to do more. Do you have anything to say about that?
So do you mean, just to clarify the question, is the question, how do you get other people to focus more on what they're good at, not what they're not good at?
Yes. and that's an easy way to put it. Yeah.
So I think like I've said, we do have a tendency to focus on like, I want to improve at this and I'm going to improve at that, and not necessarily focus on what we're good at. My sister is a really great example of that. So she's got a teaching qualification. She did a master's in engineering, and then she got like the best qualification in a year. She's an engineer now. She's got a lovely baby. Like, she's so accomplished, but she'll always like talk about what she's not done. And then I just always try to like make the conversation kind of steer back to, okay, but yeah, you can't. So what if you like not very good at that? Like, what are you good at? So I think it's just like with anything, it's just a habit. And so from an actual science point of view, when you do something a lot, the connections in your brain for that activity get stronger. So if you're a worrier, your natural easy response is to worry. If you're a person who focuses on your flaws, that connection is really strong. So the way to change that is to just keep, like, without it being, I think my sister sometimes like, just let me whinge about what I'm rubbish at. Like, stop trying to make me focus on the good things. But if you can do it in like quite a natural way of like, oh, right, okay, so yeah, that like if your partner or whatever is talking about what went bad, oh, that sounds terrible, like, or what else happened, and then like engineer it so they can tell you about some good stuff, then you can start making that habit and increasing those connections, like the strength of those connections. So it becomes easier to do it, because it's like with anything, if you don't do it, you can't, like, it's just not easy to do.
Definitely agree. Yeah, because even our neuropath is like a muscle at the end of the day. If you don't train them and guide them to stretch in the right way with the right strength, they're just gonna snap. So
yeah, exactly. And also focusing on what you don't want to do. So I don't know if any of you've been in a situation before where you decide like, right, okay, so I want to lose weight, so I'm not going to drink red wine. And then all you think about is red wine. And then like, then you end up drinking more red wine because you're like thinking about it all the time. So focusing on what you don't want to do strengthens those connections too. So the best way to not do something is just to not think about it. It's like if you wanted to, like, you learned French, just say you learned French at school. I kind of learned French at school. I got a D, but I tried really hard. But if you learned a language at school, probably 15 years later, if you haven't practiced it, you can't really speak much of the language. But if you'd intentionally tried to forget it, you would probably be better at speaking it. If you'd been thinking every day, right, I'm not going to remember how to say, where is the swimming pool in French? You would still probably be able to say, where is the swimming pool? So by focusing, that's one of the things I like about coaching, is it's very like positive focus. Strengths is very positive. And like, if you're using like science as a basis, you're just working with science and with biology to make yourself more productive. And so I think coaching is in terms of how your brain works, it's the perfect way to be doing things. So I've got some, just in terms of, so I had a few other things on the slide. I'll try and share the slide. Just because things that I wanted to just let you guys know before I forget. So there's an activity about that I would recommend that you do after this. And this is one I would give to my clients after we do this activity. And this will be very useful for you and for your business. So how can I use my strengths more? Does your current role allow you to use your strengths? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. Does your current role allow you to use your strengths as much as you'd like? How can you tweak your role to allow you to do more of what you love and are great at? And is there any way to redistribute certain tasks within the business to capitalize more on everyone's strengths? If you're just working on your own, are there things that take you ages that you could pay someone not very much money or less money than you could then make in that time to do, and you could spend more time on your strengths? And then this is a really interesting challenge that whenever I do it with clients, I get really I always get a really great response from them. Is to try using one of your strengths. So one of the strengths you've identified from this activity, try to use it in a new way each day for 1 week. That's your homework that I would recommend.
How would you do that then? I mean, could you give us an example?
Okay, so I had a client recently who he identified that one of the main things that he was good at was building relationships, and he'd kind of thought like he didn't really see it as a strength. He was just like, oh yeah, that's just a thing. And then we identified it through the activity that was one of the reasons he got into the position he was in. So then he started, like, just when he would go to, he told me about a story where he went to a market, and instead of just like when he was like paying for the thing at the stall, just paying, he like talked to the guy and like asked him about his life and stuff. And he just said that it was nice to get to know people, but to recognize, oh yeah, I am good at this, because he was just doing it in everyday life. Or with customers, to just, once you recognize something, it's kind of, and he might not have he might have already been doing the things, but he was doing it more mindfully, and it was reinforcing for him that was a strength. It depends on what your strength is as to how easy it'll be. But it is a really interesting activity that can confirm, it often confirms, oh yeah, I'm really great at this. This is definitely one of my strengths.
Opens new opportunities, actually, because usually we do something we're good at in 1 or 2 situations, like you said, whether it's business or at work. When you translate it to something else, it can actually show something, show new opportunities that you haven't thought. I get
really good response from that activity. So I would definitely recommend you do that activity. And then just in terms of for me, I would love to, I saw people posting in the chat, so I'd just love to connect with everybody. So I am offering everyone in this course an organizational strengths and team alignment diagnostic. That's just a conversation basically where we go through a process to understand if you're just a sole trader, if you're just on your own, it would be your strengths and how you can use those more effectively within your business, but also when you're thinking of bringing people on, what you need to think about. So if you're interested in that, then that just needs to be booked by the 19th of November. So I assume Tamer, you've got everyone's email address, and I can send you a thing, like an email with the information on. Businesses based in the Northeast, I think there's only one, can receive funding if they want to use my services. And my services are not just, so I know all I've talked about, gone on about, is coaching. But one sec. I also do other things, so like vision, mission and values workshops, recruitment. So I don't recruit people, but like helping you to define the role that you want and the kind of traits that you would be looking for. And then we can run assessments on anyone you might be thinking of bringing on. So there's lots of different things other than coaching that I do as a business psychologist. but a lot of it's linked to like coaching and culture, growing your business from a people perspective. So I've finished my slides now.
Yeah, very much needed and very important in business, especially when you build a startup. I mean, from my perspective, working with startups, I can say that very often, you know, we tend to recruit replicas of ourselves as founders, not only looking for someone who will complement if I'm good. And I made those mistakes in a couple of my own businesses, you know, recruiting a second Patricia, who just had a different name. And I then thought like, well, why am I paying second Patricia? Because I couldn't deal with the work that's piled up. But rather than actually recruit someone who was, you know, not a mirror reflection of me, but was complementing, and that would actually speed things up. So I think it's extremely important to really sit down. I mean, you learn over years, but when you don't have that experience of making those mistakes, but it's better not to make them. And speaking to someone like yourself can actually make it much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I think I just think it's a natural thing. Like, we want to work with people who are like us, who we think we'll get on with. And sometimes, like, the yang to your yin, you think like, oh, they're a bit like, I don't know if we would get on, and it's like a bit scary. Like my virtual assistant, like, she's like the complete opposite of me. And when we first started working together, I was like, oh, she wants so many details, and she's like so stressing out about this thing, and there's no need for us to do that. And then after the end of our first workshop, I was like, oh my God, you got me to do all those things. Yeah. That really helped. So it can be like, it's a bit of a journey, but it's really definitely worth like identifying those areas and then finding the person who can like complement and like fill your gaps. Yeah. Very lovely to meet everyone, and hopefully we can connect, stay in touch.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time and joining us. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.